Hey y'all, I'm Leah.
And I'm Rachel.
We're two wives and a spark. As new parents and as an interracial couple, we're on a mission to connect with others and explore how race and politics influence so much for families like ours.
Yes, we believe intentional conversations are vehicles for change. So we're committed to learning in public and having real talk every step of the way.
And you know what? Maybe, just maybe one conversation at a time, we can make the world a better place.
I think so. So let's jump in, y'all.
Hey y'all, welcome to episode 20. Woo-hoo. This week we interview Krystle and Scarlet, an incredible couple that we're super excited that you all get to meet. They are dropping gems in this episode. So many good gems.
Yes, we're super excited, and definitely make sure to check out the show notes and follow them on all their social platforms. They're awesome.
All right, y'all, let's dig in.
Welcome officially to our podcast. We are so thrilled to have you join us and to just connect and really think out loud together about some stuff. We're really committed to spotlighting couples like us and in different ways and shapes and textures and layers of relationships that we experience in the LGBT community. And so we're so honored and humbled to have you here today.
Tell us about your beautiful family.
Yes. So I'm Scarlett. And I am Krystle. We have 3 beautiful kids. We have a 12-year-old. Her name's Jocelyn. Then we have Liam, who's 4. He's going to tell you I'm 4. And we have little Christopher, who, he's our newborn. And he just turned 6 months on Christmas. So it's been an exciting journey. It's been amazing to be able to have him in our family this year.
And we got 2 little pups. Not little pups, big pups.
Yeah.
Oh, what kind of dogs?
Love it.
They are rescues, so we are unfamiliar. Mr. Wellington, and then Jumanji, the wild child.
So yeah, tell us more about, where do you live? How long have y'all been together? We're excited to hear more about the history of what got you here.
We live in Houston. Originally, I'm from Chicago. I moved here, 10 years ago. And we met
many years ago, actually.
Many years ago.
She actually is a teacher. So she had Jocelyn, who was in kindergarten. And that's how we met. We both had, our lives, everything was going. And she just happened to be Jocelyn's teacher. And see, she would put her in the car every day, right? I would pick her up and she would always be like, "Mommy, my coach says you're pretty," or "Mommy." And somehow or another, the little girl played the middleman somehow. But she taught her, had her for about 5 years almost, before we even started talking. Now we've been together 2.5 years, married with, a little baby and 3 babies. But it's like crazy how I tell her all the time, you just spoke it into existence. Somehow it worked out and it all came together at some point.
She was the hot mom in the car rider line.
Oh yeah. I've worked in schools before. I know how that side talk go.
Maybe Jocelyn overheard me.
I don't know, but she knew some way or somehow that she used to think Mommy was pretty, so she would tell me in the car. And here we are together, telling our story.
What a blessing. That's awesome. And Jocelyn, that's a little matchmaker.
Yes.
Yep.
I love that. Incredible. I love that. We met in a school too, so we have a special place in our heart for there's something magical that happens. We've been working in education for years and years, and so we totally understand that,
that spark, that moment,
There you go.
It took time, but it happened. It worked out.
Yeah, it took time on our end too. We understand that part of the story and the journey.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All those little nuanced pieces.
Definitely.
Who was hitting on who first? We like to tell that story too.
We both have different versions of what happened, so we completely get it. We get it.
We feel very seen in your opening. So thank you for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that with the audience too. We appreciate it. So we, when we first started this, it was kind of just to put our story out there as we were trying to have a child and we were getting married. We, as an interracial couple, we were like, man, there's not a lot of interracial stories in our age bracket. Just trying to figure out, how do you have families mix and how do you do all these little nuanced everyday things that bring us joy and that we're all about and we have values in. And there weren't tons of stories. So we were just like, fine, we're going to tell our story. And hopefully we'll get to meet other folks while doing it. So it's our first season where we've been interviewing folks. And this particular season, I'm in grad school this year. So I've been studying policy and planning for educational leadership. And I've been looking into a lot of policies and the impacts that they have on just everyday people, right? We have language and rhetoric out there, but there are impacts that happen on everyday people, right? Mm-hmm. And so this season, we really wanted to talk about just the impacts that the political climate is having on the LGBT community. And as someone who's working in the education system, I'm sure you see like the nuances of these stories and headlines on a daily basis. So we're so excited to have your expertise and just your experience on the show. Yeah. So just as a family that is, in the same sex community and like raising kids, how has the current climate of our country felt for y'all just on a day-to-day basis?
Well, we're on TikTok and Instagram. From there, we kind of feel some heat sometimes, but otherwise, like going to the store, just going out, meeting people, like it's great. But then, you listen to the news and then you kind of feel like, dang, yeah, it's not as it's not as safe as, just where we are in our little home, in our community, just hearing about other people or, in the States or in other countries. It's like, man, because, just because we haven't really felt any, I guess, hate really like in person, it kind of makes us feel like, man, the world is changing, but it is still going slow in certain places. So, for us, we still get wake up calls, like when we hear like certain things on the news or,
Yeah, thankfully we've had the opportunity to be surrounded by people that have accepted us, have loved us, have, like I feel through time we have experienced little comments here and there. When people were barely adjusting to our relationship and barely adjusting to us being together as a couple, then it would be little things here and there, but it wasn't things that really bugged us because we understood it came with it. But we also know there's people out there that don't know or have that community, that foundation. So for us, it's just been a blessing to be able to be surrounded by people who did love us, who did understand, maybe not everything, but understood at least that we loved each other and that we were going to have our children together, So like she said, we don't see it much unless we see it on the news and stuff. So, we know it's out there and we know that eventually we might come across it. But so far, thankful enough that, we're still standing strong and those types of things have not yet came across us.
Yeah. Except for virtually, you got those virtual bullies, but
we got plenty of virtual ones.
Yeah. But not anything stuff in your like personal day to day, which is, I think that's very telling, right? Like, yeah, people do a lot behind a screen. And I think you were saying this too, Krystle, like you're in your safe zone, right?
Yeah.
Which is why pages like yours matter, right? Mm-hmm. And y'all being in social media really does matter. And it does send an opposite story to the news headlines.
The point of us to starting the social media, because I've been on social media for years and that's how I've had my business. And so I knew what we're coming into, especially as a, LGBTQ biracial couple and all that it stands for. We just wanted to have empowerment of showing people that we can have a relationship and inspire others. Like our thing is always been to inspire people to be themselves, to love themselves, because even though we get the bullying online and stuff, we still just don't even care about it. We just want to be that face for other people, even though there's now millions of people out there that are doing the same thing. But the couple of people that follow us, we want to inspire them. We want to show them that we're still normal. We still do normal things. We still love. We still, we're just here sharing a little spark of our love and our family to inspire them to have their own family, that it's okay to build, that it's okay to, just be yourself.
Representation matters. And it does take courage and it's vulnerable to be out there. And social media is not our superpower. That's our growth. We're trying to work on it. We're so active in physical spaces and holding space for community in physical ways, like presence. But social media, it can be really scary to put yourself out there and to get that heat if you're not used to it and if you're not practiced at it. But at the same time, visibility, again, like it's more important to have that representation out. So I really admire you all, because it does take a lot of courage to get out there every day again and again. I'm more introverted, so it's like, it takes a different muscle,
I would say too, when we were trying to get pregnant, it was communities and couples like y'all, because you can feel really isolated and alone, especially if you're not surrounded by a lot like a lot of people in our family don't identify as LGBT. We are the LGBTQI couple. So it's not like you're getting it in your family necessarily. And so when you have those platforms where other users are sharing their stories, and it really helps you see the light at the end of the tunnel. So just continue to do what you're doing.
But yeah, we can keep it going. I mean, I think to Leah's point, like we started this brainstorm of like, what would season 3 be about this summer, right after all the Roe v. Wade stuff and all the concerns around what could threaten the LGBT community and all the ways that we're in Texas too. We're in Austin, Texas, actually. So the climate, Texas it's so different. And we were thinking about, how safe are we? We started, just the wheels started turning around. If this legislation passes, with this type of stuff and the Supreme Court, and the wheels, I don't know if y'all had any experiences like that, or if you have any thoughts or connections to like, has anything changed as you think about your kids in school right now and how they're, people talking about book bans and all these laws. What does that look like for you all? And how has that changed or shown up?
Honestly, to me, it's a little scary because, she's there, but also our kids are in school, like I don't want our kids to get bullied or get judged or, be in some I feel like parents at home nowadays don't teach their kids, like they can see her, but some kids may think she's a guy, and then some kids know she's a woman. And, so like for parents, I feel like we don't take the necessity time to educate our children that everybody's valuable, everybody means something, everybody it's worth something, like we're all human. And being that, we just try to teach our kids as much as we can, as far as like, we're women, we're your moms, we love you, like you're never going to be any less, like people are going to probably say things, but or people see us on TikTok with our older daughter, now they know. I do get frightened of it because I don't know what happens there, because I'm not with them. But I feel like the more educational we kind of talk to our kids about and give them more understanding, maybe they won't be ashamed or scared and maybe just stand up for themselves. But as far as for other children, like I really would wish that there was a little bit more education on who we are, and, that we're still moms, that we still matter, that we still like are just as great as parents as like mom and dad are, like that mom and mom are just as strong as they are, that we can still raise our children to be grown-up, amazing children, just like they are.
Like I was saying earlier, like, because even at my work, they know my family. This is my first year at this job, and they're like, oh man, I've seen you on TikTok, I love your family. And they're like all really supportive. And even at my previous school, there wasn't any issues. But then, you hear things on the news and it's like, dang, what is going to happen, like, to our marriage? Like, is that going to be threatened? So those type of moments make me nervous. And I know that, I would like to move, but we can't move. So, it's like, man, we have to be in this state and you never know what's going to happen, So it does kind of feel like some days, like our life could be, threatened, and it sucks. But, as far as like the schooling system, I just try to make everything normal. Like if a kid says something, sometimes the younger kids are like, Coach Harvey, are you a boy or a girl? I say, I'm a girl, but I like to wear this and that, sometimes. And I just make it, you see like other teachers, their eyes go like, don't ask that. And I'm like, it's fine. They might not be used, and you just got to get them, aware, at first I used to be like, There we go. But then I realized they're children. They might not have experienced this. It's all about education and just making it, nor don't make a big deal about it. Just because you make a big deal, then they're going to feel like it's something like, crazy. The kids will ask, they'll say like, oh yeah, I seen you and your wife on TikTok. I'm like, yeah, I got, 3 kids, this and that. And then the conversation is just easy instead of making it look like it's something huge, just making it, oh yeah, I had pancakes for breakfast. So,
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
We'll have to send you this pancake story because it's just ends just like that. Like, yeah, put these pajamas on and we have pancakes. Like, it's such a beautiful story. And I totally feel so seen in your sharing, because that's 100 kids all the time. I've worked with 3-year-olds all the way up to 12th grade, yes, but 6th grade most recently. And so it really is, once you just create it as a part of the conversation, then it becomes a part of their norm. It becomes a part of their like everyday life and experience, right? And it's such a gift to be able to enter them into the world in that way. And something else I love that you just shared that I have been sharing with others too is like, a lot of policies and bills, which are scary, can be made. You can't stop me from living in my skin. Like walking in the way that I walk into spaces, like it's not going to stop children from asking just genuine questions about who I am. And that's just me existing. So I think that the tension in a lot of the rhetoric that's out there right now is like, so are you just telling me not to live? Like, is that what you're really saying on paper? Like, don't be, And I think when we really start to humanize what we're really talking about, like, and continue to share our stories, you can't erase that,
Yeah. Right. Like, I feel like adults right now are the ones messing everything up, right? It's the adults. She always said, the hurt people saying, and she's always like, healed people. It's like, it goes this other way too. If we just work on empathy and connection and sharing these stories more, there's so many layers to when you have exposure to different perspectives and stories and couples. Kids are like, oh yeah, I like pancakes and I like short hair too. It's actually not that complicated. We've just gotten so good at complicating something so simple,
Right.
Yeah. And Scarlett, you said this earlier too, which I think is like such a missed lesson in our society right now. And it might be cultural. And so I really appreciated you bringing it up, but like, there's a value system that's missing, right? Like what we teach our young folks and how we raise them up to see all and to be kind to all and to love all. That's a missing value system. And I think we don't have as much in America. Like there's a lot of individualistic kind of upbringing in our country. And that part is missing from families. And it brings us a lot of joy to put Ember in spaces where we introduce her to community, introduce her to different types of people, introduce her to just being kind and showing up and having fun and being joyful, because that is something that starts in the home.
It's like short story, we took them to a Pride, right? And Liam had never seen a drag show, and he fell in love. And, he as a little boy does not know who they are behind their clothes, and just knowing that he smiles and that we can bring him and like show him later, like, you remember when you were enjoying these moments, like my parents would never. My parents growing up the way I grew up, it's like, you have to marry your culture, you have to marry it and your color, and you have to do everything. So I was that kid who didn't listen for nothing. I did everything that my parents did not to do. And here I am married to, a woman, and my parents at first hated her and
they didn't hate me.
Well, they hated when we were together, our relationship.
The idea.
Yeah. But they loved me.
They love her, but didn't love us. So, when we broke that curse to show them that the kids were happy, that we were happy, that we deserved to be together, and there was nothing that was breaking us apart just because they felt like we couldn't raise kids together. Like I felt like we had to go through a process of educating my parents, being from Hispanic culture, that it was okay for us to be raising children together, that it would be okay for us to be mothers together. It only came through time, but it happened. We had to educate that to everybody and people around us.
People have permission to love others for who they are, and to be like, okay, well, if that love can exist, like, can I work on some parts of me that I've like boxed away or put away. Like it actually allows permission to be given, right? And it's such a powerful tool when you think about just being your true authentic self genuinely gives other people a chance to do the same. And especially when they're around it. I feel like that when going back to what y'all were talking about earlier, like people behind the screen can just, hate as much as they want to. But when you're around joy and a good feeling, you can't block it. You can't deny it. You might want to. You might be like, I want to deny this, but something's feeling real good inside, Like,
exactly. Yeah.
And the more you're around it and the more consistent it is, you really do start to heal. And then you start to open up and be like, what else am I missing out on? Right.
Well, maybe we could double click a little bit on this layer of it, because the podcast really did start as, us exploring in 2020 post the year of racial reckoning and everybody having conversations about race in new ways. We found ourselves positioned to hold space for having these unique conversations about race and what it means to really be thinking about our future in all these different ways. And also, if y'all are down to double click on what you were saying earlier, how has race, all the layers of that, how has that looked for you?
So we have a couple ways to approach it, because we recognize, of course, like my heritage, I'm Jamaican. So, we talk about my culture, we've talked about her culture, try different foods, that kind of stuff. But we also try to make it like, again, just trying to normalize things, like not trying to make it a big deal that we are two different races. And, some people have problems with that, because then you start creating things in their head that they might not even be aware of. So, when questions come up, we try to just let them know everybody's different, and that's cool. Like, you have different cultures, different values, different things going on, but at the end of the day, you're human. Everyone needs respect and love, But, with our parents, I think my parents, because I have an older brother, and he has always dated outside of our race. And I think he kind of broke the ice for me, basically. They would always make jokes, but then after a while, you got this woman for how many years now, the jokes kind of go away. They start seeing her for her, and they don't care that she's white, that's sister-in-law, So it helped for me, I think, just because he had to go through it. But, now all the older people in our family, they don't think twice about it.
I'm the oldest in my house, so I feel like I broke it for my brother, my sister, like she said, but I had to go through a lot to be accepted just for who I wanted to be, and just to come and, years forward and to reality, never really been who I wanted to be. So now that we broke the ice of us being together, I get friends and family who are always like, I've never seen you this happy, but because you're really who you are now. Like, it's who you've been since I was 12, 13 years old, but hiding behind something that I had to, because I knew how my family was, and I knew that I wouldn't get accepted. And I knew that it would take a lot of, sticking stones and rocks to go through it before my parents were going to be okay. It took us some time to separate from them for a while, for them to really see that if I'm happy this way, you just have to accept me. And if you can't, then unfortunately, I won't be there. My kids won't be there. And it's hard to take those roads, but all I can tell people is now is like, do it. Just break those barriers. If you don't do it, you're going to be unhappy for so long. Like, you are not going to ever accept yourself, for one. And people are never going to accept you for who you are, because you can't accept yourself. So those are like things that we have to break. And in order to break them, you got to take those chances, and I had to take so many chances before I got it right.
I just love the realness and the story behind how you got there, right? I think it is easy in our society to not necessarily always know the story of how people got to this life of being free and vibrant in themselves. And it does come with some loss sometimes, right? Maybe the loss doesn't last long, but it's still loss, right? So I just love both for both ends, and especially across the cultural differesses. My nephew who's here, like, he's looking at us all the time, like, how did y'all get here? Like, what story can I, like, what question can I ask so I can figure it out, you know? And you don't necessarily always know the question to get the answers that you're getting. Is sometimes it's just hearing people and listening. So thank you so much for the realness in both of y'all's responses.
What you just said really spoke to me, because it's like, I didn't realize that I wasn't accessing my full self until I met her. You know, like somebody told me, it's like your light just started shining in a different way. Like I didn't realize that it was being dimmed, because that's the system that we're up against, right? When you don't even know what pure joy and love looks like, when you've like internalized these beliefs about like, well, this is as good as it gets, I get, like, I don't know, right? So what you said really spoke to my whole spirit, because I found myself when we fell in love in like a very unique way. It was really healing for me.
I try to share as much as I can when I do speak, especially now that other people are going to hear this, you know, like somebody out there needs to hear it. Someone out there needs it, because I knew that I needed it, but I never took in consideration that I needed it, like until I stepped into who I am now. Is that I know, thinking back, is I needed it, but I never gravitated and took it. I just left it alone. And I feel like she took it out of me. And then I was so scared to come out my box. I was so scared having a big social media I built a business through social media for so many years. Going through all those phases, I was always like, how are people going to react towards me? How am I going to be that face of my business anymore? You know, how am I going to be this mom? But then little did I realize that it was just a better me. It was better for my business. I smiled more. I showed my real self. I, you know, am different towards my children. I can educate them different. I lost a lot of people in a way that I thought were my friends, that I thought were supporters, that I thought were always going to be there with me. And it's okay, because people that are meant to be are going to be there, whether you are who you are. Mm-hmm. And so now, you know, I just learned that I just needed to be the Scarlet today, like who needed that extra push to be a vocal for some others that are not willing to speak up.
It's almost helpful to know, like, actually, I didn't need that energy in my life anyway. Mm-hmm. And now I get amplified people who are super supportive in a unique way, right? It's interesting. I think we have so much fear of losing and this and that and judgment. And then when it happens, it's like, oh, wait, it wasn't some magic, like huge cliff that like, it's just another day.
As long as you don't lose yourself, right? As long as you can continue to be your authentic self, then the people who need you have the room to see you, because your authenticity is just shining. Like when I found your stuff, I remember I think y'all had just gotten engaged, I want to say. And I remember just following that story. The proposal was bomb, by the way. But following that story was nice. That was legit. And that, like, that was a gift. That was a beautiful thing to be able to witness. And that's when it really hit me, like, oh, there are people like really showcasing the steps, the process we go through. Like, we be thinking about it in the same way, you know, heterosexuals do, you know, and heterosexual couples do. And like, you're exposing that and sharing that. And I was like, oh, this is dope. Like, I got to keep following them. And then again, you're funny. Like, it was a double whammy for me. But yeah, I just love that. And because I get that opportunity of following you, we'll make sure to like include all y'all's like links and stuff on this episode. But we would just love to know, what would you, given the opportunity, want to just share with other families? Like, if you could give any message to another family, what would you share?
And just do you, be yourself. Like, I mean, I know it sounds like cliche or very simple, but being yourself sometimes can't be simple, but that's basically all you got to do, because there's no other way. Like, you don't want to stress yourself trying to impress or make somebody else happy. You gotta be yourself.
And maybe find someone who you look up to, like another couple, you know, someone who inspires you. So that way you can see their life, envision yourself in it, and know that that's all the possibilities that they're going through, you can have, but also make those decisions to be that way. Because if you don't make any decisions to love, to be who you want to be, to have a family, to, you know, go through a whole IVF procedure and have a baby, and, you know, just do them, because the negative people are going to be there, whether you are in our community or whether you are not. Mm-hmm. So that's never going to stop. Like they're always going to come and hit you left or right. But you got to decide if I want to go through them or go through my own journey and let all the negative things that happen to me there, but still take those, learn from it and keep moving, because those negative comments, negative things are not going to make me who I am today or who I am going to be tomorrow.
Yeah, there's just so much that our community, we have listeners, I think a beautiful mix of LGBTQIA plus community folks and parents, non-parents, and then a mix of allies and straight folks and parents of all walks of life listening too. So if you had, the flip side of this question would be, if you were wanting our straight allies and folks wanting to show some solidarity, what would you hope parents and community members did more of?
Just talk to your kids and let them be aware, like, everybody's not like us, you know? There's different types of families, and that is perfectly fine. You know, I think just that conversation can just help tons, you know, because kids already, you know, have questions, they see things, but sometimes they're afraid to talk to their parents, you know. Just have conversations with your kids, you know, and even not even just your kids, but, you know, coworkers. If you hear somebody say something ignorant or rude, correct them. Don't just let it slide, you know. You don't have to get all in their face, but you could just politely, hey, da 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 da, you know.
And you just never know. That can open a door for your children to trust you and the way they feel and the way who they really want to be. Because a lot of times we don't know what our children are looking up on social media, and they really want to be someone else and be vibrant and love and just feel loved. And so when we have these conversations, we're allowing them to, okay, my parents are going to accept me if I want to love on a woman, if I want to love on a man, if I want to love whoever I want to love, right? My parents are there for me. My parents are not telling me, well, because we're mom and dad, we can't allow you to be who you want to be. And that's something we kind of went through even with our own daughter. You know, we now tell her, okay, if you want to love a male, you can. If you want to bring home a woman, you are okay with it. Like, as long as you are happy, as long as you talk to us, we can guide you. We can tell you what we did wrong so you don't do it wrong. And all we can do is support, but we have to give that open door. If we talk, our children are going to allow us to listen.
Love it. Thank you so much. So much.
We need that message. We need your voices. So thank you. Truly, it is an honor to talk with y'all and share stories with y'all, and to know you're so close too. That's pretty awesome. So thank you for that.
Is there anything we didn't ask you that you would like to share?
If you find people that are in the same community, to try to have a community around you so you can always have a safe place. That's probably the only thing I can think about, is that people finding a safe place for themselves with people that are around them. We never have had those problems that we encounter, but if you may have them, and then you may have that safe zone that can take you out real quick and remind you who you are, that you're valuable, that you're loved, that you're seen, that, you know, you matter somewhere. So that's very important, to have that safe space of community around you wherever you're located. We just love being able to share our love, like our story, because I feel like there's not many people that are willing to share. And,
right.
and it's hard, you know, sometimes it's hard, because it's like, how open do I want to be? How open do I want to let people in my life, you know, because now we're giving the opportunity to people just being like, I know all about your life.
I would go on social media trying to find other moms in my position, you know, other interracial couples. And it's like, man, just like you were saying, that visibility really does matter.
Because you need the guidance. Otherwise, you're like making up all the worst case scenarios, or like, what if I don't do this right? So just being able to have a model in front of you truly does settle down your mind, so you have space to be the version of yourself you want to be. Y'all are pouring a lot into it. And so I just, much respect to y'all. Much respect.
It's all been a learning experience for me, honestly, for me. I've been in, you know, the 2.5 years, I've learned so much for me. And I feel like as a person that hid for over 15 years, you know, for so long, at 30 now, I'm like, okay, I either speak and continue hiding, or I let people know that it's still okay to be you. Like, even though you're a mom and you have kids and you have this life that people want you to follow, you know, this model, that it's okay to break all the barriers, and it's okay to be who you are, even at 40, 50 years old, you know, like it's okay.
Yep.
Thank the kids for sharing you with us today.
No, thank you guys.
Anytime.
Bye.
Right on. Yeah. Take care.
Thanks for joining us today, y'all. We'd love to stay connected on Instagram and Facebook, so you can find us at 2 Wives and a Spark, all spelled out.
If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend so we can keep the sparks of connection going. If you want access to our episodes as soon as they drop, click that subscribe button. Every rating and review helps others find us, so thank you in advance for letting us know what you think. I'm Leah.
And I'm Rachel.
Thank you for listening to 2 Wives and a Spark.
Yeah.